Hello and welcome to Hometown Cable and What's Going On Here. I'm Marty Picard and I'm not Bob Venn. Bob's actually on assignment. It seems he's covering for Willard Scott. Why we're here on Lake Champlain, if you look out in the distance, is to find out what's going on here and why that tugboat's actually in the village of Rouse's Point. So come on aboard and we'll find out exactly what's going on here.
On by 1st September, with $5,000 fine.
Hi, we're back and we're sitting aboard the tug. With me now is the captain of this vessel. Perhaps you can introduce yourself?
I'm Skylar Meyer, and I'm the chairman of the organization that sponsors this, the State Council on Waterways. So I have a sort of a dual role. I run the State Council on Waterways and I'm skipper of the tug. As a volunteer, it's a volunteer job on the tug.
Well, Captain, I guess the first question would be, what's a tug doing up here in Rouse's Point?
We're having a really great time. This is an educational program, and we started in Waterford on the 9th of May, and we visited communities along the Champlain Canal, and school groups came down. We have a teacher who works for us, and school groups that have been introduced by the teacher came down and spent some time on the tug. We then went over to Vermont and we visited 3 ports in Vermont working with school kids. Classes came down. We stopped at Basin Harbor, Burlington, and St. Albans. And now we cross the lake and we're starting here and we're going to go on down to, from here we're going to eventually to Plattsburgh and then spend 3 or 4 days at Crown Point. And it's an educational program. We want to show kids that they can learn the history and geography and that learning can be fun.
Certainly this type of atmosphere would be conducive to children being at least excited about the field trip.
Yeah.
Is this something that you do on your own, or?
Yeah, I was asked 2 years ago, I was asked by the DOT to skip the tug as a volunteer. I'm the only volunteer. And I'm a retired Navy tugboat skipper, and I've traveled the canal for some 35 years. And I love the canals. So they asked me, because they didn't have any funds, as you know, New York is known to have problems. So they asked me if I would skip the tug as a volunteer and raise the money privately to do this project. So we designed the project, we raised the money, and took on as the sponsor the State Council on Waterways. Most of the funds are coming from a New York foundation, the Edwin Gould Foundation for Children, because it is an educational program for kids, designed specifically for kids. Because you have a lot of community people come on board. Tonight I think we're going to be open for a couple of hours because it's been in the papers it will be open for people in the community. But I think Ann told you, Sherry, that we've had kids all day, classes coming down that have been scheduled. Let me talk about the history of the Urger. You didn't ask me, but I volunteered the information that the Urger is 91 years old. I guess you knew that. She was built on Lake Michigan in 1901 and was used as a fish tug on Lake Michigan. And then the state bought her in 1922 and brought her to the canal. You can tell that she's a canal tug by the low profile, because you know that many of the bridges on the canal are only 15 feet. So she's got fixed bridges, so she's got to be able to get under the bridges. So the profile clearly identifies her as a canal tug.
Now, it's first was put into service, you said, as a fishing tug.
As a fish tug on Lake Michigan. Yeah. And I'm not sure what a fish tug in 1901 did on Lake Michigan. We gathered they hauled nets and probably fish boats and that kind of stuff. And so the state bought in 19, and incidentally you notice that the seal on the stack says DPW. In 1922 that was called the Department of Public Works. Of course now it's the Department of Transportation. We found those in one of the old warehouses that DOT had, and Gary, the engineer, and the kids painted it and polished the brass and so forth. Incidentally, it's kind of interesting. We've had a number of members of the family of the original owner of the Urger find out we're doing this and follow us. A woman called me from Croton a couple of weeks ago, and she was the granddaughter of the original owner of the Urger, and she'd seen it in the paper. Isn't that interesting?
So it was privately owned when it first was put into service?
Yeah, it was first put in service, owned by a company in Michigan. Incidentally, Gary has probably shown you the engine. It has an Atlas Imperial diesel engine, which the Department of Transportation bought in 1947. Bought it surplus from the Navy. The engine itself is from the 30s, so it's not exactly new. But you notice that Gary has painted the engine and the parts, and you can see all the working parts, so that we can't run on this dock, but if we're at a concrete dock so we can run, the kids can see the pistons going and get a big kick out of it. And they love to spin the wheel and play with the bells. Incidentally, she's what's called a bell boat, and they're just not made anymore. Madden tugs have controls on the bridge, and the captain runs from the bridge, but I can't. I communicate with Gary. That's the station where Gary sits. You can see the controls there, and Gary sits there, and I ring bells to him, just tell him whether I want to go ahead or stern or faster or slower.
When this was in its service years, how many people would actually be on this as far as crew?
I don't know, they probably would have 5 or 6 probably with the captain. Depends on how much work they were doing. If she was towing, she probably would need a deck force of 2 or 3, maybe 3. We've run just with Gary and myself and Ann, we've run up down through the locks ourselves. But if you're going to be working towing and so forth, you need probably at least a couple more. And of course, all our crew, the crew that's really now are teachers. You met Sherry Packman, who's a teacher, but she's also a deckhand. Gary has her down painting and polishing, and you can see the brass. And the DOT has it. She doesn't look like this. The kids have polished the brass and painted and shined and made it look like something. We're very proud of her. Incidentally, we all have a huge love affair with her. And I love it. The Schenectady paper last year started an article and said, Skylar Meyer has a new love. She weighs 50 tons. And Sherry could volunteer to tell us about the love affair we have. We really do. She's an extraordinary boat.
We'll find out a couple of things with her in a few minutes.
Okay.
Could you just give us a rundown as far as basic statistics on the tug itself? How big is it? What are its engine sizes?
Okay, well, she's 320 horsepower, and she's 72 feet long and draws 9 feet, and has a 15-foot beam. The 9 feet is kind of critical because there are a lot of places where the water may not be that deep. In fact,
by drawing 9 feet, you mean
from the water line to from the surface of the water down to her bottom. In other words, we need a depth of 9 feet at least to be able to get around. At St. Albans, we got ourselves alongside a dock, and it turned out there was 8 feet of water, but it was mud. And we were sort of sitting on the bottom, but when we got ready to go out, we just went. She has a tremendous amount of power. Of course, a floating dock like this we can't work on because we take the dock apart. But when there's a concrete dock or something that's solid and steady, then we can put a line on the dock and move ourselves out. So I'm not sure how we're going to get our stern out here to get out of here because we can't work on a floating dock.
You say it's 350 horsepower. 320. I guess the question would be, is this a fast boat, or obviously
no.
With the name tug it implies strength of some type.
Yeah, power. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Are these things rated according to how big a barge you would move, or? No, but she can move a lot. She worked on the canal moving barges, and so she has a lot of power. That means a big wheel, a big rudder. And we can do on the lake, we've tested, we can do wide up or do about maybe 10 or 11 knots. And for those of us that aren't necessarily nautical in background,
that'll be about maybe 12 or 13 miles an hour, which isn't very fast. But the speed is not the thing, it's mostly power.
Of course, for those of you at home that saw Calvin and I last week in the canoe race, 12 or 13 knots was actually a little bit faster than what we actually did. With this docked here, you said they're all educators that are a part of your staff that are here. Is that a voluntary part of their service, or is that part of their training, or?
Well, they sometimes complain that it almost is. Sherry thinks it almost is. No, the staff are paid the on board, and we have to pay expenses. The state is, they made me be sure to let it be known that they don't have 1 for 5 cents on this project. They don't have the money to do it, and yet they wanted to use the Urge. She was incidentally retired in 1983 as a working tug, and they did use her a couple of summers for promoting tourism and so forth. But then they were anxious. John Germano, who's head of the Waterways Division, who's really quite a guy, he really wanted to use her and have her used. And they thought it was to promote tourism on the canal and so forth. But we decided that what we really want to do is an educational program, that the possible use of the waterways for education is just absolutely unlimited. I mean, kids can learn anything from arithmetic to zebra mussels. And, of course, up here, particularly history and geography. But the canal is an extraordinary, I don't think there's a waterway like it in the world. And, we had I have a chart on my boat that shows the Great Lakes, and we were putting it up, and I can ask the kids, and you say, now, the Urger was built on Lake Michigan. Show me Lake Michigan. So they'll point, they'll figure out Lake Michigan. And then you say, now, how do you get from Lake Michigan to Albany? Because through essentially the Erie Canal when you get to New York State. And then you can point out to kids that you can get by water from the St. Lawrence to New York by water, the canals of Canada. And of course, history all the way. Incidentally, of some interest, on the end of our tour, in the end of June, we're going to wind up at Whitehall with the Philadelphia. And you may know about the Philadelphia. The Philadelphia is a replica of Benedict Arnold's gunboat that was sunk in 1776 right here at Barker Island. And of course, that's part of the incredible history of Lake Champlain. And I don't know, I'm not that good at it, but the number of battles that took place, and I've been told by a very good friend of mine, John Williams, who's retired not long ago as the chief archivist of the state of Vermont, reminded me that the War of 1812 was won right off Clam Island, off Plattsburgh. But the U.S. Navy had learned something the British Navy hadn't learned, and were defeated by Clam Island. And the British troops had come down from Canada and occupied Plattsburgh. Thought that was bad news for them, and they turned and headed back to Canada. And John Williams, most interesting guy, was the chief archivist of the state of Vermont and knows the history of the lake better than anybody. And he's written us at least a letter a day on the kinds of things we should be teaching the kids about the history, but also about the ecology and the pollution issues and that kind of thing, the environment and so forth. Because we'd like to see the canals used in every possible way for education. It's limited only by the imagination of the kids themselves and the teachers. And if you like me, I might add that our visit to Vermont had a very real purpose. We're great believers in community service, and Vermont has a very unique community service project called Service Learning that is coordinated by a great friend of ours, Cynthia Parsons, who used to be the education editor of the Christian Science Monitor. And she calls it service learning because the community service project relates back to the school and the teacher, so that kids learn from whatever community service they're doing. And one of the ideas we had was to perhaps give kids, and we're doing a little of that, maybe a sheet of paper with an outline of Lake Champlain, and let the kids put in the various towns and historic points, and maybe find a town and do a little research and find maybe there was a nursing home there, and design a little community service project around that nursing home. And we've got a little mini-grant program, and we can give a few groups of kids maybe $100 or $150 to carry out a community service project. So we are doing a little of that.
What are the plans for the Urger once this initial tour is completed?
Well, unfortunately, we're out of money, so if anybody can come up with funds, we'd like to do more. There's a program down in New York called the Seaway Project. Maybe you know of them. And they want us to spend September with them, but we're just out of money, so at this point, the Urge will just be tied up at the DOT terminal, and that's the end of it. And then if we're going to do it again next summer, we've got to go out and raise more money. It's amazing, isn't it? Money. Without money, we can't do anything.
Well, there again, money is something that will affect us all. And speaking of which, that's probably a good time to go back and hear this word from one of our sponsors. And we're back, and joining us at this point, perhaps the captain will introduce the rest of his staff.
The crew. This is Sherry Packman, who's a teacher with us and also deckhand. And Sherry takes the kids around and shows them the parts of the boat and has a regular tour. So why don't you take them around?
Okay. We'll start out in the galley. Kitchen.
Yeah. Okay, we're in the galley.
This is the galley. You see we have this old-fashioned water pump here. And although this is what we have now, we have a tank, about a 30-gallon tank underneath. But what was originally used on the boats, we found out from an ex-tugboat captain, is they would have a big barrel of fresh water that would be used for drinking and cooking, and any other water that would be used for bathing, washing the decks, washing the clothes would be drawn out of the canal or whatever body of water they were on at the time.
So it actually, when it first started, was collected under the boat. Basically a pump to...
Well, they would have a big barrel on deck, and that's where they would carry water there, and I imagine they would open it when it rained too to gather rainwater.
And the propane stove probably wasn't here at the beginning.
It probably wasn't.
What would they have used at that particular point when...
I don't know. One thing that when the kids come on board, we ask them is how this galley is different from their kitchen at home. And some of the main things they notice is that one, it's always a pump, and some of the more subtle things, we ask them, why does the stove have a rail on it? And we probe them until they figure out, well, a boat moves, and so if there's pots and pans on top, this is there to guard them from falling off.
No, I didn't even notice that there was a rail on there, as well as the cabinets themselves have a small lip on them to keep everything in.
And basically, the countertops are clear of dishes and groceries for the same reason, so that they don't move around.
On a boat this size, would there have actually been someone that would have come in and been a cook for the crew, or did the crew actually take care of most of this themselves?
As I understand it, there would have been a cook if it was a long enough journey or a long enough job for people to be sleeping on board.
I guess I'm probably just not familiar with the use of the tug itself. Would people have been gone for several days, or would this have been an afternoon job? Or
maybe Skylar wants to help me with this. Sometimes it would be days at a time, sometimes, and imagine other times it would be short trips, like taking barges through just one set of locks or one section of the canal, and other times they might be doing a whole lot, transporting for a whole section.
And if you, I don't know if Calvin can get a shot of the windows, those are all the secured manhole type.
Portholes.
Porthole. Manhole, I guess, is what they have in the,
Right.
in the rotary. I'm not overly nautical with my terminology, but...
There's a lot of brass work on here, which we're kept busy polishing, and I just learned the other day that the reason that there's so much brass work is that it forms it, because it doesn't rust, and we're always polishing it so that it doesn't rust, it forms a tight seal to keep rain or water or the seas from coming in.
Very enthusiastic.
And we've moved right past the engine room into what appears to be sleeping quarters.
This is the crew's cabin. There's 4 beds here, as you can see. When kids are coming through, we usually ask them if they can figure out how many crew members there are by looking into the cabin. They pretty quickly figure out that there's 4, and then that there are 4, and then we say, well, what are those 4 positions? And by the time we've gone from the wheelhouse through the engine room and into the galley, they've figured out at least 3 of the positions, being captain, engineer, and cook, and then we usually have to help them with the deckhand one.
Now, is this something that on your tour you as staff sleep in? Or?
Yeah, we sleep in here, and it's tight. I can't sit up straight in bed, but
all the ceilings I've noticed are pretty low. Again, I can stand up straight without a problem, but for some of the taller people, I'm sure that must have presented some problems.
It actually turns out to be kind of cozy, and I understand that on other ships, compared to other ships, this is pretty generous living space.
Well, living space for your summer, I guess you're spending a great deal of it out here. What do you do when you're not aboard?
Well, this tour actually just goes to the beginning of the summer till around June 20th, because our funding is so that this is an educational tour, an educational project, so we do it while schools are still in session. And what do I do personally? What do you mean, what does the crew do
when you're not physically aboard this? Do you have another job? Do you work for the state?
I'm a teacher by profession.
And do you specialize in elementary or?
Elementary education and language.
We'll go back out and we'll see if we can't find a little bit more of what's happening.
I'll show you to the pilot house. This is the wheelhouse, and maybe you'd like to sit down and be the captain for a moment. This is the original wheel that from when the boat was built in Ferrisburg, Michigan in 1901. Once again, you'll notice all the brass work on it, which has just yesterday been diligently polished. This boat runs on it's called a bell boat, and what that means is that, and I'm going to tell you the way we explain it to the kids, which is when the kids come up here, we say, okay, where's the ignition key? What makes this boat go? Where are the brakes? What makes it stop? And when they realize that there's no key or high-tech buttons to push, then we start talking about communication, that this is a bell boat, and the captain has no control over the engine. He can only see. And the engineer has all the control in the engine room, but he can't see because he only has a side window. So what that means is they need a form of communication, and the form of communication they use is a bell system. This bell leads to a gong, which you'll see in a few minutes when you head into the engine room. It's the top bell, and this sound is what one or two bells will give the engineer the signal to forward or reverse, and the boat has to. It's not gears or a clutch. The boat has to come to a stop and then be put into reverse. The smaller bell is called a jingle, and that signals speed, faster, slower.
Now the captain would have been up here steering and operating each control on each side?
I'm not sure, but I think that it doesn't matter which side they're rung from. It makes the same sound. It's just a matter of convenience. And not only would the captain have been up here doing that, that's exactly what Skylar does when we travel.
There again, I think that's something we pointed out, that this boat, as it's going on its tour, is run the same way it was since its inception.
It's 91 years old, and she's retired but still kicking. This leads to the horn, which is not blowing. If you want to take a look at this gauge here, this is the gauge of compressed air. It's on 0 right now, so that's why the horn isn't working. And we make sure it stays on 0 when we have kids coming out all day.
And that probably in the first few days of the tug would have probably been run by steam or something of that nature?
Well, the tug was a steamboat. It was converted to diesel in 1947 with war surplus Atlas diesel. Another thing that's interesting about the boat, I think, this was pointed out to me, and I really enjoy pointing this out to the kids, is that except for these two things, which are probably the most modern things on the boat, which you can really see how the way things work on this boat. It's not all electronic and digital where you just press buttons and it registers with computer chips. It's not like that. You can really see how things work. So when you spin this wheel, or when a child is spinning the wheel, we say, okay, look down underneath these yellow ladders and what happens while we spin the wheel? And they look down and they say, oh, there's a cable down there and it's moving. I don't know if you want to get a shot of that. Okay, you see that cable moving? That cable leads, and we kind of send the kids on a scavenger hunt, and we say, all right, if we start in the stern of the boat. We say, all right, you're going to follow that cable all the...
Stern of the boat
That is the back. The stern is the back, and the bow is the front. We say, okay, if you look down here and see this cable turning, you're going to follow that all the way to the stern of the boat and see what it leads to. And it goes all the way along the side of the boat, and we use that as a guideline. We say, okay, follow the cable to the cabin, and then follow the cable to the engine room, follow it to the galley, follow it to the stern of the boat, and see where it leads. And it eventually leads to the fantail, which is the very stern of the boat, and underneath there is where the rudder is, and the rudder is what steers the boat. And so it basically goes down like this and comes around, and that's what steers the boat. And the cables connect the steering wheel with the rudder.
And again, this is exactly the way the boat's been functioning even when it was as a workhorse. There's nothing mechanical, there's no...
As far as I know, the mechanics are all the same, the engine is the same. And a lot of times people ask, they say, oh wow, this boat has been so well restored. Well, it's not been restored, it's been in service until 1983 or 1985, and it's been well maintained and it's been worked.
Again, this was a tug designed to move barges on the canal. As we'll show you a little bit later, in Champlain. In fact, barges were constructed, I believe, down on the Rapid Road, and Larry Paquette's going to actually give us a little bit of insight as to where they were constructed and what they actually did. I'm not necessarily saying that Larry crafted the original barges, but certainly he's well versed in them and their location in North Country. And we'll get back to him a little bit later.
It is also something to note that this tugboat Virgin was employed right here on Lake Champlain, very close by in Plattsburgh. It was used there for dredging. Okay, you'll notice there's a little brass arrow on the wheel, and that is not a compass. It basically just lets you know that the wheel needs to be straightened out, or that you're not going on an exactly straight course. We do have a compass, and it's right over there. And right now we don't keep that out because it's a delicate piece, and we have a lot of kids on board. But before, that's not the reason they would guard the compass. It's been known that told that sometimes people would break open the glass, alcohol that it's floating on. So that's an interesting little tidbit.
And they explain many a shipwreck. Just looking around here, you marvel at the extent of the brassware and everything. And I know you commented that you polished that frequently. Was the brass because this actually went into salt water and functioned in salt water, or?
I think it was mainly used on inland waterways, so that would be sweet water or fresh water. I mean, not salty water. And what I was told was about like the portholes, why they are brass, so that they don't rust, and it makes a tight seal so that water doesn't get in. I don't know exactly why the wheel and the other, like the clock behind you, has brass on it, and I don't know exactly the reason for that.
And we're back here above the tugboat Urger. We're here on the bow. So a lot of things to look at. We'll take a look and actually see it. I know that this is the manhole. I know I was confused earlier with porthole, but this is a manhole.
Oh, you're wrong again. This is not a manhole. This is the forecastle or forecastle. And right now, we use this area for storage. You'll see mostly a lot of rope lines down there. Fenders made from old spliced rope. And the reason it's called the forecastle is this may or may not have, on this boat anyway, been used as living quarters originally. It's pretty tight down there, but...
Now, something that comes to mind right away by looking around is that all the boats I see in the marina are fiberglass or perhaps wood, and I noticed that
You heard the way that
The cover
clanked.
was kind of heavy.
This is heavy steel. This boat weighs between 40 and 50 tons, and it's almost all steel, and it's riveted. So,
Now, would this be the same construction that tugs are made of today, or?
well, first of all, I don't know that tugs are still being made today. They may be, but I don't know. And I don't know what they're made of.
Now, this particular,
these are the original bits, and you can see on it says Builders, Phillipsburg, Michigan, 1901, Johnston Brothers. These are made of steel, I believe. They're often made of iron, but I think these are steel. And this is called the main bits, the forward bits, and this is what we use to secure the lines.
now, the lines are all rope. Is that something that's commonly used, or do they use cable or chains? Or?
I think they use lines, ropes. And we keep them all coiled up so that they're more easily accessible when you need to throw them out or bring them in.
Now, when you say when you get to throw them out, is that something that you're still doing even on this trip?
Well, not so much on Lake Champlain because we're not going through locks, but when we were going through the Champlain Canal or right on the Barge Canal, we were going through a lot of locks. We do a lot of line throwing because when we come into a lock, we have to secure ourselves from floating all over, from bumping into other boats, and we just need to stay right up against the wall. So there will either be wires that there's either lines hanging down that that are long enough to bring around the side bits, like on the starboard side or the port side, or there will be, I can't think, bollards, that's what they're called, bollards. They look like big mushrooms, and or posts, pins, and we have to take the rope. Let's see if I can find one. What we do is we take the rope like this, and we look for the side that goes down easily. We bring it up like this to make a big loop, and then take a few arm's length like this, so that it's in a circle that isn't winding close, and then pretty much you throw from the side, and you let go of this, and then almost immediately let go of this, so that it uncoils as it goes along. And what we do is, that's what the deckhands do, is to throw them onto the bollards or the pins. We coil them back up clockwise. Yeah, clockwise.
Now, is that customary with every boat, or is that simply on this boat that you wind clockwise?
I imagine it's pretty standard. We had someone traveling with us from the Navy. They said they do it in figure 8, so I don't know.
We're here, we're out on Lake Champlain. We're aboard the tugboat Urger, and we'll be right back in just a couple of minutes.
We're going to ask you to come along as we take the walk down the side of this tugboat, and we hope to probably go upstairs before we're through our tour. Electric lights, I'm sure those were not here in the turn of the century when this boat was made originally.
And we're back. We're in the back of the boat, which I believe is referred to as the stern.
That's correct.
And you also used a couple minutes ago port and starboard.
Right. Port side, well, I can tell you a little story about it. The rudder of the boat is what steers the boat. Right now, on this boat, this is under the fantail where I'm sitting. And do you remember I showed you the cables? And the cables, we said that the steering wheel moved the cables, and the cables can come all the way back here and come right around to the propeller, the rudder back here, which steers the boat. On old boats, the rudder or steerboard used to stick out of the right-hand side, giving the right-hand side the name that we now use, which is starboard. So if a boat was coming into dock, they would want to come into port on the left side so that they wouldn't damage the rudder, giving the left side of the boat the name port. Your feedback here?
I was also noticing when I was out just a little while ago that there's what appears to be old rope or some type of hemp across here.
Yeah,
is that intentionally there?
Yes, it is. This is hemp, and it's used as a fender.
Against hitting other boats, or?
Well, probably against a barge in tow, or something in tow. And we had one on the front, and that's called the beard. It was, if you see older pictures of the Urger, you'll see it with this big hempy beard, and that was recently taken off because it was falling apart and it needs to be replaced.
Anything else you'd like to tell us?
Well, these two posts back here are called the main bits aft. You saw the one in the bow of the boat, and this is what would be used to make up the lines when towing a barge.
And there again, I believe you said that would be all handled by one deckhand.
I didn't say that. There would be more than one deckhand.
Okay.
Right now on this tour, we only have a few because we're not
functioning as a workhorse.
Right.
Sure. And we just glimpsed as we're coming around the corner of the anchor that we see over to one side. Mm-hmm. That wouldn't be something that you would normally do. You wouldn't normally anchor out in the waterway somewhere. You would normally dock, or?
Well, on this tour we've been docking, and the only time we needed to put out an anchor was in Westport, New York, where we hit that sharp change in weather a week or two ago when it went from 95 degrees and then dropped 50 degrees, and we had a good storm, so we were anchored out. Also because the water was still very high and the docks were low, and we needed that extra anchor security.
Well, that brings up a good point. As long as you're out here doing this tour, you're living aboard this particular craft. What do you have as far as heat?
Well, we haven't needed to use the heat too much. There's some radiators in there, and I don't know if they're steam furnaces or what, but they provide a little extra warmth on rainy days.
Anything else you'd like to tell us about your particular function on this boat, or anything you'd like to?
My position is as a deckhand and educator, so when my responsibilities as a deckhand were a little more utilized when we were on the Champlain Canal, because, as I said, we were going through locks and there's more line handling. Now, once we're out on Lake Champlain, there isn't as much to do in that area, and more of my energies are concentrated on dealing with the kids and educating.
Well, that's what it's all designed to be, is to bring part of our history and part of the water's history to the children of the area. Mm-hmm. Certainly, we've seen several of them today while we were waiting to come out here and after the concert earlier today. Is this something that's widely accepted throughout the area that you're going through?
People really dig the Urger. And it's not, I would also like to point out, it's not only to bring into the community, it's to draw the community out. For people, I mean, what we really like is for people to come down here and say, oh, I used to be a tugboat captain, or my uncle worked on this boat, or do you know of this person or that person that worked on tugs? And it is a reminder that the waterways are still alive, and that the history and the folklore of the waterways are still alive, and it's to really create a vehicle for exchange, not for us to just bring information. It's to make an exchange.
Again, it's the atmosphere is certainly conducive to everyone's wonderment and in asking questions and enjoying the history that's here. We'll wander back up and see if we can't again chat with the captain for a few moments. We thank you for your time. And again, we're located here on Aboard the tugboat Urger here on Lake Champlain. We're finding out exactly what's going on here.
The roof isn't of material safe enough to walk on, but we do want to take at least a shot up here of the upper part of the boat. Hopefully going down into the engine area, we do want to point out the wood railing on the top here and also the wooden fenders along the side. Wander into the engine area.
Okay, and now we're located in the engine room. We have the captain back with us, and he'll give us a quick oversight. If you look at the far end of the viewing screen, I think you'll see a brass bell. I think those were the bells that they were ringing from the wheelhouse. Is that what they referred to that as?
Wheelhouse bridge, yeah, that's correct. And, well, it's an Atlas Imperial diesel built probably in the 30s. The state bought it from the Navy surplus in 1947, I think it was. They say she was used on minesweepers. When I say direct drive, it means that there's no transmission, no clutch, and it stops in between going ahead or reverse. The whole engine stops. And Gary sits up there, the engineer, those are his controls, and when he wants to start in either head or stern, he does it with air. It starts with air, and then once it starts changing over, he can put fuel to it. That's what makes it a bell boat. And Gary and I have a system of bells. The larger one makes that louder sound. We use one means ahead, and then with speed I do the jingle. And one jingle for each one for the speed ahead. And two means slow down. And then the big gong again for either stop or two of them means go astern.
Now, this particular boat, when it's running, just looking at the size of the engine that's sitting here, I'm wondering if, do you really hear those bells, or is it a lot of intuition between the two people, or?
Yeah, no, Gary can hear them very well. And I can hear them from the bridge, so I know what I've run. And, no, you can hear them very well. They're quite loud. She doesn't make a tremendous noise. It's not exactly quiet. Gary does a lot of hand oiling. The piston rods have to be oiled regularly when we're running. And I'm always amazed. I think this is the lube oil back here, and I think she carries 20 gallons of lube oil or something. Absolutely fantastic. I'm glad I have to buy the lube oil for it.
Now, again, we're aboard the tugboat Urger. It is, however, state-owned, but it is not state-funded as far as its journey. It is a non-profit organization. It is the State Council on Waterways Incorporated. We will give you that address in the event you're interested and would like to see the Urger continue on its way. We'll have that address available for you. Okay, Calvin's taking a look down below. He's actually standing on the bottom of the boat itself. It's considerably lower than the deck that we were on earlier. That's part of the displacement that we referred to earlier. Again, some 9 feet of this boat actually sits below the water surface level. And that's something to just picture when you imagine navigating on waterways and the like, and you think of debris scattered and sandbars and things of that nature. It certainly must become a problem. As far as your journeys, Captain, anything particular come to mind, or any story that holds some special fondness for you when riding the Urger?
Well, I was telling somebody up on the bridge just now who was asking about it. I'll tell you, the happiest days of my life was sitting at the stool behind the wheel and traveling down the Erie Canal. It's absolutely unbelievable. Something always new. I've traveled it for 35 years, but there's something always new. You see the passing of the landscape, trees, meadows, fields, mountains, villages, towns, homes. It's absolutely unbelievable. I just love it. And I did add that one of the happiest parts is when Ann, I'm sitting up there all by myself watching the wheel go by as we go down the canal, and all of a sudden I'll hear Ann say, Captain, how about breakfast? And she'll hand me a plate of fried eggs and crisp bacon, and then I'm in heaven.
Once again, the whole purpose of the Urger being here this week is to allow the community, basically, not only the young people, but the community at large, to take a look at our history, hopefully become a little more acquainted with the service of the waterways and its importance in our development, really as a nation and not only as a state. One question, I guess, just begs to be asked, since we know you have been traveling Lake Champlain for quite some time in the recent past. Have you spotted Champy?
No, I've heard about Champy, but I've never spotted it. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, no, never have.
Again,
I don't know how many people really have. A lot of people say they have. Yeah, a lot of people say they have.
Anything else, Captain, that you want to tell us about the Urger?
No, I mentioned the love affair we have with it. We hope we're helpful in promoting interest in the history. The history of the Champlain area is just absolutely incredible. I mean, if we're promoting that and getting kids interested in our history and geography, then we feel we've accomplished something.
Again, this is a non-profit organization that is responsible for this. The staff is limited as far as paid staff. A number of them are donating their time and their efforts putting into this. Your contributions obviously would be appreciated. We'll have that number up there. Again, I think that it bears to be said, this works a lot like hometown cable. There's a lot of people out there donating to a good cause.
Can I just say one thing that we're worried about, and we're worried about the future of the Urger if we can't use her, because if she gets laid up in the DOT terminal, do what they can, they're short of funds, she doesn't get the care that she does when she's being used. A boat as old as this really has to be used all the time, otherwise it'll deteriorate to the point where it's just lost. It would be an absolute crime to lose her. She's one of the oldest tugs still in operation in the United States. And the National Park Service, I forget the name of the program, has written us and they want to register her as an historic vessel. And because we'd love to have that, it doesn't accomplish anything particular. But we're all worried about what would happen to the Urger if she were laid up.
Again, in looking back, this was something that was actually functioning in service just a few years ago. I understand as far as a dredger and things of that nature in the local area, and that's certainly something to behold, that a ship of this age can actually still be functioning. A question I had asked a little while ago, and she wasn't actually sure. We noticed that the construction of the vessel is iron, steel, concrete, or wood, or things of that nature. Is that the way tugs are made today?
No, they're probably welded, I'm not too sure. But you notice the rivets, she's a riveted hull, and that's one of the things that tells you that the hull, it's the original hull. The house, incidentally, is not the original house. And some of the superstructure, the Navy, obviously, when the DOT, when they replaced the engine, they had to take the house off. So we got the engine out. But most of it, that's the original wheel you saw up in the pilot house, and the original balls. And it's the kids the crew who polished the brass. Normally she wouldn't get this, and Gary's painted the engine so that he can describe the parts to the kids. You can come down and look at them because they're fascinated by that. She's quite a boat. She is really an incredible vessel.
Well, we'll go back topside and have a few closing words above sea level, as it were, above lake level, I guess, from Calvin's perspective, and we'll say goodbye to the Urger when it's time here in beautiful Lake Champlain.
Hi, welcome back. I'm here for the first time, Bob Venn, and we're just looking at the picture of the Urger, the pamphlet that was given out, and I would like to thank Marty Picard for taking my place and becoming me on the tour of the Urger. And just as long as you don't try that, Marty, at the bank or anywhere else that I go, you're all right. We thank you very much. Marty's done a lot for Calvin and Hometown Cable. He does some of the village board meetings and does a good job, and we appreciate that very much. We're just going to close out this whole program. We had a couple of things in mind, and they haven't worked out as of this moment. Number one, we intended to get someone to talk with us. We were trying to get Larry Paquette. He was not available today. And we have someone else in town who used to work on one of the tugboats, and we're going to talk with him, and that may still be possible. As it is, it will follow this segment you're going to watch right now, and if it's not there, we didn't make contact, and maybe we can before the summer is over. And I haven't seen the previous footage yet. I hope you do enjoy it. But what we're going to do, we're going to run about 5 minutes or so of some pictures I took last August when we had the first Champlain Village Fest, when we talked with Celine Paquette at the fire station, where they had the two mock-ups, one of the canal boat and the tugboat that was built by one of the Mr. Paquettes, one of Larry's uncles. And they were models, and talked a little bit about them, and she show you how the top comes off. So you'll see that now, and then we'll come in right back and we'll close out this portion, and maybe talk to that man who used to work on it. Thank you very much for watching Hometown Cable regularly on a regular basis, and it's always nice. Before we leave the boat completely, I wanted to show you a drawing here. You can see, of course, the front end is to your left. The pilot house is where they steer the boat from, and the searchlight is to look forward. You can see the horn on top. These are probably pointed out to you on the tour. The bow fenders, and you see the hanging pieces off the sides of the boat. That's so that when you go along a dock or another boat, you aren't scratching everybody up. The bow is in the front. The stern is in the back. Midships is right in the middle. And there's as you face the bow, port is on your left. There's no such thing as left. That's port. And on the right is called starboard. Leeward is the side away from the wind, and the side the wind is hitting is called windward. And you want to make sure if you're going to spin over the side of the boat that you're on the leeward side and not on the windward side. You find very quickly what we're talking about. Anyway, the rudder in the back is what steers the boat, and that's about all we'll have. But before we go any further, along with, I'd like to read you a little bit about the Champlain Canal. I'd like to show you a map of New York State with the canal system that we had back in the 1800s. And that portion that ran from the Canadian border up into the Richelieu down to Albany was known as the Champlain Canal. That goes down through Fort Edward. It's some of the other places there, Comstock, where the Comstock prison is roughly close to that. And it was a very eventful thing, and that's the reason for all of the boats that you had on this lake that brought merchandise up and down. They were towed by the towboat, or the tugboat as it's known. And on the back of this very nice brochure given out by the Urger, it said the Champlain Canal. When the New York State government began to consider a man-made waterway which would connect the Hudson River to the Great Lakes, and that's up by way, they first considered a canal which would connect the river to Lake Champlain, which would also continue north through Canada and connecting it to the St. Lawrence River. But the War of 1812, which was very active in our area, as you remember, the War of 1812 between the United States and Great Britain, which owned Canada, interrupted those plans. Instead, the Erie Canal route was chosen. That's the one that went west from Albany. However, to get the support of the northern counties for the money, the government decided to build a canal between the Hudson River and Lake Champlain at the same time as they built the Erie Canal going west. The first Champlain Canal, which was finished before the Erie Canal in 1822, 170 years ago, consisted of two man-made sections. The northern, the southern section joined the Hudson River at Waterford, just outside of Albany, and went north to Saratoga Falls. From there, the boats would re-enter the river. The northern section began at Fort Edward and continued up to Whitehall on Lake Champlain. The river section was very difficult for the canal boats. In 1825, a section was added to connect the two canals into one long canal. Another section was added which connected Glens Falls to the canal. This feeder canal, as it was known, brought extra water into the canal from the Hudson River and could also be used for boats. Like the Erie Canal, this Champlain Canal led to a lot of growth in the towns and villages, and the canal was very prosperous. Both canals were enlarged several times to accommodate the heavy traffic. Remember, in 1822, a little bit of sidelight, we didn't have these trains running up into Rouse's Point and Chazy and Plattsburgh. They didn't start until the 40s and 50s, 1840, 1850. So this was one way of getting the traffic up quickly and cheaply. But like the Erie Canal, as the railroads moved in, the canal couldn't compete with the great improvements that the railroad, without big improvements to themselves, and they figured it wasn't worth the money. Railroads kind of took over in the middle of the 19th century. In 1905, the New York State Barge Canal was designed and a new Champlain Canal was started. The new canal used the Hudson River between Waterford and Fort Edward. A man-made canal continues to Whitehall. Like the modern-day Erie, the northern route is used by large commercial barges and thousands of recreational boats. And that's the story from the brochure on the Champlain Canal. Along the wall, and these two boats right here, there's a tugboat right here, and there is a barge, and this type of barge is that same type which brought things up and down Lake Champlain and down into New York City, up the St. Lawrence, the Richelieu, I should say, where these models were made by a Mr. Paquette. I don't know his first name. I think it's Emil, but anyway, it's Larry's uncle. Bill Paquette's brother made these, and these types of barges right here, some 60 to 80 feet long, were made in the village of Champlain, just down on across from the main road here, right over the top of that hill on what is known as River Street today. Back in the 1800s, it was known as Pleasant Street, and a lot of these very distinctive barges, canal boats they were known as, were made right here in Champlain. And these tops on these boats, these right here, would remove. You can see these things would come off, and they would fill the hold up with merchandise, and then they would, there's one right there, Celine is taking it off, and then you would load your merchandise into here, and they had no motor, but they were towed by a barge such as this, and they would tow as many as 15, I believe, and this was the living quarters on the back of the boat and the man who was in charge of the canal boat brought his whole family during the summer. They ran up and down when there was no ice, and all the motor to bring this, all the power was done by the barge, and they would, when they're on the lake, they would have as many as 3 and 4 wide and maybe 4 or 5 long, and they were all hooked together. And there was a regular chain of them. And we are indebted to Mr. and Mrs. Paquette for letting us see these here, and a great memento and a great history of what used to be in Champlain, New York. And we have tried to get a lot of information about these old boats and some pictures, etc. And we're thinking of doing a story on Channel 21, what's going on here with Bob Venn on canal boats, but we're not moving along too fast on that endeavor. So we'll go look at some of the other pictures. And here are some pictures and an article on retired skipper filled time by making a model. I guess that's the man, Captain George Paquette. So it was George that built this and other models. And this paper is dated 1965. This canal boat was built by Bill Paquette and is a scale model of the type boat that was built in the Champlain boat yard at the foot of River Street around the turn of the century. It was used to haul lumber, coal, hay, and miscellaneous cargo, and they were known from New York Harbor to Quebec City, as well as on the barge canal from Albany to Buffalo. A Champlain-built canal boat was a proud possession, being exceptionally easy to handle when in tow on Lake Champlain. The last known canal boat to come up the Great Chazy River into Champlain Village was that of Mr. Joseph Allard, and it was anchored just south of Billows where it rotted away. That was about 1938, and isn't that sad? Champlain Canal boat, L. Paquette, that's Larry, expert. thank you for being with us and watching the tour of the Urger here at, today we're back in Champlain. We've got a guest, and our guest is Russell LaFountain. You people in Champlain know Russell. He lives at the corner of Pine and Church Street. And he's a tugboat man himself, and that's why we're here to talk with Russell. What does it say on it? Barge Canal, look at that. Surf Club, Little Falls, New York. See, he's, all his life he worked on tugboats, right, Russ? Yep.
This is Lot 17 in Little Falls, New York, on the Erie Canal.
You've been through there, obviously.
Lots of times.
Lots of times, huh? Russell, were you born here in Champlain?
Yes.
Your mom and dad were who?
My father's name was Emmett LaFountain, and my mother's name was Elsie Ellor. A-L-L-O-R-E.
And those are the people that were in the boats a lot too, weren't they?
They had their own boats.
Right, okay. Now, LaFountain, spell LaFountain for us. There's different ways to do it. How do you spell yours?
I'll spell mine L-A, capital F-O-N-T-A-I-N-E.
Okay, so some people say LaFontaine instead of LaFountain.
You're right.
You say LaFountain?
Yes.
Okay. Russell, how long did you work? When did you start working on tugboats?
What year?
Yeah, well, how old were you?
39.
1939. And you worked until what year?
85.
That's 46 years, is that right? 46 years, yeah, terrific. And go ahead, yeah?
I put 4 years in the service.
Oh, okay, well, hey, don't worry about me. If you make a mistake, we just said it. That camera keeps going.
Yeah,
all right?
going.
Oh, that's all right. Okay, now you were 4 years in the service in between, but other than that, 42 years on the boat.
Just about.
Okay, well, now, Russell, they don't have boats in Champlain anymore, so where did you work? Where did you go to work? When you left here, you had to go someplace.
Oh, yeah, I had to go wherever the boat was. If it was in Albany, I'd go to Albany. If it was up in Chicago, we'd go to Chicago, or wherever it was. If it was up in Delaware, Connecticut, that's where we'd go. If it was our time to get off the boat, we'd get off.
How did you happen to start working on tugboats?
Well, my father was a tugboatman,
All right.
and he had 3 boats of his own.
Okay. All right, we'll get back into some of your experiences after, but in Russell's collection of probably 200, 300 different pictures of tugboats, he happens to have one that Calvin found. There it is right there, and it's part of our study. That is the Urger. Although he said he's never served on the Urger, and probably never even seen it, except for here. He bought this card where?
Waterford, New York.
These are postcards that Russell bought as purchase, and they were like the baseball cards there. They had all these tugboat cards. And Waterford, New York was the big place for tugboats?
It was a big place for them to start to go up the canal. They're waiting for it. This is cause here. I'll tell you what it says right on it.
Okay. Canal boats at Waterford, New York, waiting for the canal to open. Now, these were canal boats. And if you saw it, I guess you have already seen the part with Mr. Paquette, that the boats that were made here in Champlain, New York, were boats like this, that you filled with cargo, and then you would tow with the tugs, right, a series of barges, or canal boats, they also refer to it now. And you would tow how many in a tow?
That all depends where you are. If you're in the canal, you take about 6.
And on the lake?
Well, Lake and Hudson River, you can go. I've seen ones, Cornell down the Hudson River. You had 50 of them.
50, towing 50.
Yeah, the Hudson River, though.
Yes. Now, of course, they're all lashed together, right? They would be lashed together, and people on each one of the canal boats,
yes,
as you're pulling them, right?
They used to have their family on, too.
Okay. And what did the guy do on the canal boat while you were towing them? He couldn't do anything.
Well, they had painting to do, and they had to check them up, and they had cabins, they had to do some washing, go out and get groceries.
They had no motor, right? No motor on them?
No.
So you have to be towed anywhere you wanted to go.
That's right.
All right. And the canal that you worked on, mostly was east-west? Or you came up from New York?
Yes.
So what did you do? You say you got on at New York. What happened to you then?
Well, we might have to do some work in New York Harbor.
Okay.
Maybe we're waiting for a barge to load. After the barge was loaded, wherever the barge had to go, if they had to go to Syracuse, Rochester, we would head up the river.
And you'd be towing 4, 5, 6 of these barges?
I'm talking about all barges.
Oil barges?
Yes.
Okay, so you put only one?
We have one.
Okay. Now, how big is an oil barge, Russell?
Well, some of them are 220, 20,
They're big. They're big. They don't have motors at all in those?
Mobil had one by the name of Mobil Champlain that had its own motor.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's not in use anymore.
Now, if you took this oil barge from New York up to Syracuse and you dumped it, what would you do from that point? What would you have to go back to New York, get a load?
We go back
Empty?
and get a loan.
Back empty just by yourself, huh? How long would a trip take? Excuse me?
If we go back empty, as we were in the canal, we'd have to put water for ballast in order to clear the bridges to get under. And if you didn't do that, you'd never get through. If you did, you wouldn't have no house left.
All right, now you see, it was something we wouldn't think of, right? Because when you're full, you're pulling something, it's down low,
That's right.
and later it's up in the air, and it would not be, right?
Yeah. You wouldn't go under the bridge.
So you'd bring the barge back empty. Is that what you're saying?
It would be empty, but with water in.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, once it was empty, you'd wait till it was empty,
That's right.
and then you'd bring it back down to New York, but then you'd put water in it. So that it would be down below the bridge.
In order to get back to New York.
Right.
That's it.
Okay. Now, Russell, I know we've talked off camera a little bit a couple of days ago. We wanted to have you do this. You left, let's say you'd leave home on a Monday morning to go to wherever your tug was, right? How would you get there? How would you get wherever it is?
Well, I'd either have to take the train or take a bus. I've taken the airplanes, everything's a distance. Sometimes I'd have to leave the night before to get to work for the night after.
Okay, let's say it's in Waterford. How would you get to Waterford?
Well, we'd take the train to Waterford. The train used to stop at Waterford years ago.
And leave you off?
You would get off and we could walk to the rock.
Okay, now when you said goodbye to your wife the day you left, how long before you'd see her again?
Well,
Give or take.
Well, I've worked, like working on the Great Lakes, we used to work 30 days on, 15 days off. It was too far to travel.
30 days in a row you'd work?
Yes. And if you're working like in the Canal on Lake Champlain, you used to work a week on, a week off, or 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off.
So you'd be on a boat like this, in your tugboat, for all that time? You slept there, you ate there, you worked?
That's right.
So you were working 24 hours a day, except for when you wanted to read or sleep?
That's right. That's 6-hour shifts.
Okay.
6 on and 6
6 off,
off.
6 on, and 6 off, 12 hours a day.
That's right.
For 6 days, that's a lot of work. And you'd come home for how long?
Well, if you work 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, you have 2 weeks off.
Okay.
I worked as high as 67 days once up on the Great Lakes.
Straight. Did you do all that money you made?
Well, I spent it. I had a good time, that's no how about it.
How many people would be on a boat like this?
Well, that's a state boat, that's a different story.
Well, let's say the boat you were on. Let's take, I don't know if we have one here. Let's say one of the boats you were on. Here's one here, for instance.
Well, we go to the pilot house, have the captain and the mate.
The pilot house is up above, the one that you
That's where you
see?
steer.
That's up here.
That's right.
Okay.
Then you've got 2 engineers.
What do they do?
Well, they take care of the engine. They break down, they fix it, and they clean it up, and they keep it going. Then you got 2 deckhands, so they work on deck. If they know where to go, like I used to know where to go, I used to steer for them once in a while. But they're taking a chance that if they do it with somebody else, I'm not trying to say them better, but I knew where to go. I've been at it quite a while. I've done it with captains, I didn't know where to go because they were younger than I was, and I was already there, and I give them a hand. And then we had one cook.
Eat pretty good on this ship?
Yes, oh yeah, very good, depending on the cook.
But they had good food.
They had good food.
Maybe you didn't cook it well, but it was good food.
You get so much for each man.
Uh-huh. Could you go get a lunch if you felt like it?
Yeah.
Anytime, yeah?
It was there,
Just like home, huh?
just like home.
You know,
Home was never like
you
it.
know, you tell you knew where to go, and I don't know where to go. Calvin tells me where to go. Well, more than once, he told me where to go.
Ain't saying it.
All right, Russell, along, when you're going east-west, then, that was called the Erie Canal, that went east-west?
Yeah.
And, of course, the one way you can do that is to go through different levels of the lake,
That's
going
right.
east-west, right? Now, there is which one should I use first here? Okay, let's take this one. Like you see, remember that one there? This is a boat going through a canal. And this obviously is going in from the low end and then they close the big doors, right?
Yeah,
They close the big doors, right? And then they start filling it up with water.
That's right.
And then when it gets high enough, they open the gates on the other end, and they go out,
They go out, that's right.
all right? There's a series of, I think you said 12 or 13 locks going across from the south, going east to west.
No, if you're going up to Buffalo, you got 35.
35 different locks. You know, like maybe going 20, 30 feet at a time. Sometimes you may have 3 or 4 in a row because it's too much to go all at one place, right?
That's in Waterford, New York. They've got
Okay.
2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 5 of them.
All together.
That's what they call the flights. But
Okay.
one after the other.
This is number 2, which would be, obviously, if you're going in that direction, it's the first one. And then you would be going, from there you go up higher and higher to get to the different levels.
That's right.
And then, now, when you go into a lock, I think you told me, well, let's look at a good picture here of the, well, here's a picture, we'll go back to the urger again. You see this look like straw in the front? Now, Russell tells me that is, why is that on the front of a tug?
That's what they call a fender. So if you're pushing an oil barge,
Right here. This is the one that's being...
yeah, that's it. There's one
Okay.
right there. You're pushing one of these oil barges, you're not hitting steel to steel.
You don't always pull. You know, you push sometimes. And you push these...
That's pushing.
You don't push them all the way up. You just when you're going into a lock or out of... Is that right?
All the way through.
All the way through?
Yes.
Are you connected somewhere other than... You have cables hooked to each other?
Yeah, a couple of cables and a couple of safety lines. That's on the bow. I don't know if you can see any on that one.
You can't.
No, you have to have another...
You can't see that. Okay. We'll take a short break and be right back. You're watching Hometown Cable. What's going on here? Bob Venn in this portion of it with Russell Fountain, one of our local residents. If you remember, I talked some time ago, we'd like to do a story on the building of the canal boats in Champlain, but I've had a lot of trouble trying to find information, anybody who could talk to us about it. But there is one person in town who had a few pictures, and I was up to see her this morning, Miss Helen McCrae, and retired school teacher, graduate of one of our local Champlain here many, many years ago, and she's was very kind to loan me this picture you're seeing. This picture is taken from behind what is now our telephone office some way, looking over onto River Street, and this is the Champlain boat building, a company that used to be here in Champlain, New York, and there you can see where the men are standing on one of the barges or canal boats. It can be called either one, is that right, Russell?
Yes, that's right.
And they're sitting on what would be the living quarters, where the family would live. Did you ever live on one of those?
Yes.
Your dad worked on one of those?
My dad had 3 boats of his own.
Like this?
Yeah.
These? Okay, then that's what they carried on. Not a rudder in the back there, you can see?
That's the rudder.
That's the rudder, kind of steer it way off in the back on the right. And they made these right at the end of River Street, just about a little bit more toward the village of where our sewer plant is, that whole along the water. And it went on for years. I think the last one was built in about 1909 or 10 or something like that. And they made some very, very fine canal boats that were well known up on the Champlain part of the canal. And this picture is a great picture taken, and probably some names, if we knew who those people were some of your relatives out there. As a matter of fact, Miss McCrae gave me, or loaned me, I don't want to scare her, she loaned me this picture of some of the people who worked at the boat building. And this picture, I'll try to explain a little bit. On the second row, as you look at it on your left, the first man was Henry LaFontaine. So you think that might have been your uncle?
Could have been. I don't know that name.
All right. And then the fifth one from the right side of the picture is a man with black hair, and he's got like a vest on. He was Ed Pussa, and he was the boss of the yard. The third row, that would be the last row back, the third man from the left, you see he's got his cap and a brim back. Name was Colty, didn't have a first name. The next man was LaValle. They think he's a relative of Moon LaValle here from Champlain. And then the second from the right, way over on the right with the floppy brim on his hat, was Fred McRae, Helen's dad, who worked on the boat for many, many years. And this is another great picture that she has that I have never seen, and a great thing here in Champlain. Also, she gave me to show you people today is this building you see is on the, I guess you'd call it the south side of the old bank, next to the bridge, next to the building we're in. We're in the KC building right now, and they're coming, this would be going, to your right would be down where the bridge is, and that little boat, or whatever you have there, is something that was owned by Bill Earl. Bill Earl was very well known. Russell, you tell us a little bit about Bill Earl?
All I know is he used to fix bicycles, and he was pretty good at it, and he didn't charge too much. He did it for the kids. He was a man that liked to have children around, and as far as I know, that's what he did.
Right, he lived on River Street, and this, just as you would turn down River Street, this was the building on the right. It would be probably down about 200 or 300 feet down on the right, on the river. And if you look across here, this building that we can see over here is the Lewis Hardware building. So this was out here, and look at all the kids with the bicycles. He was really a Pied Piper. They would gather with him, and he'd tell them stories. He would cook, make soup and beans, and they went over there. And people always knew where their children went. I know I've talked to Bing Lowe, and I've talked to the Greg Wares, Larry Paquette, great fans of Bill Earl.
I want to mention what the hardware is now.
Okay, the hardware now would be the auto parts of Champlain. All right, I'm sorry. You new people here that it would be right next to the old, right across the little park we have in the village. A couple doors up from Manny's. And here's another picture of the shop at the same location, a little lighter picture. See all the kids there. That wasn't unusual. And over on the right, Bill Earl himself, who was Helen McRae, who owns these pictures, was her uncle, her mother's brother. A fixture, a name here. Used to wear knickers, I understand, and they always talked about Bill Earl's knickers. And in addition to these pictures that go along with our story, she happened to have a couple other pictures, and pictures of some floods in Champlain, and we picked them up to bring. And this is the Methodist Church, going up Church Street from bottom to top. And there's a little street that went off to the right, and the river is over here, and that's where it was flooded. And at the same time is a picture across the Iron Bridge next to the bank building. And this is north as you cross over toward the village. And there's the old cars, about 30s, and there's the Iron Bridge that they used to have, and they're looking down at the floods, which are way up and probably out onto the streets. Just a little bit of sidelight, courtesy of Miss Helen McRae. Okay, now, as we get back into the pictures, what do I have here, Russell? These are fenders?
Yeah, them are rope fenders.
They're made up by rope?
Yes.
All right. And on the back it says 1982, fender made by Larry Paquette and Russell LaFontaine. The tug was Aaron Keogh.
That's right.
And that's not our Larry Paquette, is that right?
No, that's the one that lives in Silver Lake, if he's still living there.
Okay.
Him and I worked for years, maybe 10 or 12 years together.
Okay, and the one over here is another fender on the bow of the tug Aaron Keogh, and they use that to urge along or to push along the barge. But in addition to pushing, of course, they also pulled.
That's
And
right.
this, I was told, was an ocean
That's an ocean
tug. Now, they didn't cross the ocean with that, did they?
Yeah, they go across the
All the way across the
some of
ocean?
them went
They could, huh? Okay. And you see, they would tow it, and
The tug wouldn't go across the ocean, though?
the tug went across the ocean?
Oh, I see someone used to go up to Newfoundland.
Oh, yeah? Well, all right, then here is another one being towed, a picture here you can see. Again, some more pictures of a tug doing its work. And here is a picture, Russell told me, taken from the back end of a tugboat. And these two are lines attached to the barge that they're pulling. And Russell, it seems like it's a long way off. Now, how long would they tie a pipe?
And some of them, well, that one there, we were towing, I believe, up the Hudson River. That could be maybe 100 feet, but if you go out in the ocean, they run 1,000 feet, 1,200, with a cable attached to the rope.
And this is rope here, right, you see?
That is rope. That's what
So
they
that we
call
have,
That's what they call hawsers.
okay. Now, the hawser, to give you an idea, there's another picture here. I don't see it quickly, but here is some hawser. You can see the bottom of this picture, nearly the size of your arm. It's at least the size of your arm. That's big.
They're about 6 or 8 inches.
All right. And, of course, they would, you could tighten it made out of hemp, regular big rope type thing. And you can see that it's not all easy, because you see that white stuff right there? That's not cotton or batten. That's snow. Right? And
That's right.
it's not always warm out there when you're working.
That's big in Connecticut.
Okay, and this is you here in the picture?
Yes.
Well, that's taken a few years ago. You can see that's back in the 40s or 50s.
I would say so.
All right. Now,
To give my age away.
oh, no, not yet.
I don't care.
Okay, now,
Part of it.
here is the hawser here. Here's, this is you here with the
Life preserver.
life preserver and the hawser on the bottom. You can see the size of that. And it doesn't break much.
Some of them are 10, 12 inches.
Is that right?
Well, if you're towing a heavy large ships or something, you don't have a bigger one than that. This is mostly for canal work, harbor work.
Did they break at all, Russell?
But sometimes they'll snap.
Did you have to, do you know how to splice them?
Oh,
That
yeah.
was part of the deckhand's job,
Yeah.
into weaving into back and forth. Now, you've got to remember that not all the time, as we mentioned, is it in the summer. In the winter, and this is the canal,
That's the Hudson River.
the Hudson River, and so they have an icebreaker that would break the ice, so that the tugs could pull there or push, and so they had to keep their working during the summer. Winter, you need things just as much as you do in the summer. And here you can see some things that the ice has been broken. They've broken the channel, as you know, from Cumberland Head, right? Go ahead, Russell.
Well, this is taken in Hudson River. See, after the ice is broken by the icebreaker, this is when the tug keeps flowing, stays on the channel, and that helps them to keep going.
Okay. You can see the tug is pulling the big barge behind it. Here's a picture of a tug again. You see all the fenders on the side that are hanging, and the bow that they used to push, they have that big fender. Another picture very much the same. And again, you see the size of some of the chunks of this ice that they've broken. And here is the pilot house. That's where the captain or the man in charge
That's right.
did the steering. They could see. This was higher, so he could see. When you're pushing something, how do you see over and above what you're pushing?
Well, in some barges are too high, you can't, but some of them, if they're lower, they have a high powerhouse. It goes up and down. They raise it up.
They do. Now, does the barge able to steer itself ahead of you a little bit? As you push it, can it steer itself?
When you turn the wheel, the cable makes the barge turn to the left or to the
Yeah,
right.
but if you're pushing.
That's what they do.
Oh, I see.
The cables on the back.
That will move.
goes to
Okay.
the barge, and when you turn the wheel to the right, which is the starboard side, that's the way it goes.
You hear that wavy top there, that water top? Starboard, that's the right-hand side. We told you about that the other day. One more thing I wanted to show you here. You see this round thing over on this boat here, and there's one over right behind here? They would tie one to the other. But the big one right here, just to the right of that person, you told me was
The captain.
right here?
That black one, yes.
And what's that used for?
You put the rope on it to pull these ropes in here when you can't pull them by hand.
And it would rotate.
It goes around.
Goes around.
And it keeps coming. It would turn around this here, and you hold it on this end, and one guy holds it this way, and then the other guy pulls it around. You see, one guy gets tired of doing one thing. If it's too long, then we change.
Can I assume that rope is a little wet at times?
Well, sometimes it is. It's pretty icy in the winter.
Yeah, I imagine.
You have to break it in the wintertime, break the ice. Sometimes you have to take it and run it all the way up in the bow deck, come back and get another piece and try to break it and bring it out. That's when it's solid.
Okay. And this man you're sitting here, see, used to smoke a pipe. 20-year-old Russell LaFountain right here.
Just about it.
Long life on the tugboats to go, and he looked happy. They just got finished eating.
How'd you know?
I can tell. You got to smile. All right. And here is, let's see what else we got. This is a picture of would this be a oil boat or just a barge?
That's a barge.
This is the barge. Dana Bray under the guard gate between lock 6 and 7 on the Champlain Canal. That would be, remember, the Champlain Canal is that which went from the Albany area north up here to Rouse's Point. And this is looking from back to front of this big barge. Would there be many people on a barge like that? Right in the back, yeah. He's whispering to me that the tugboat was back there. The tugboat was the James J. Keel.
Yeah, that's it. It's hard to see it.
Okay. It's way in the back here. You can see the tugboat is pushing this. So this is the front. I was wrong. They're pushing it from behind, coming through into the lock. All right. And here's another pulling 2, right?
No, only one.
Only one?
One.
This is in Plattsburgh. Okay. Tell us about this one.
Yeah, and that's in Plattsburgh.
The barge, got oil?
Yeah, we came up with a load of oil.
Uh-huh. And
That's tied up at the state dock. Someone's up there where the mill is there.
okay. And there's a big, high pilot house on that one, you can see. And you were working on this one, you were on the Keel?
That's the one.
How many different ones did you serve on, think? I mean, I don't know how to give me exact, but are we talking 5 or 25?
25 would be more like it.
Why would you go from one to the other?
Well, sometimes one would be breaking down. So they have one, a spare one, so you go on that one.
So did the company own a whole bunch of them, they put you on one or the other?
Well, that boat there, I worked for the last company, it was Keel Company, and I worked 19 years on that one boat out of 20.
You did, on the Keel.
With just about the same crew.
Now, you said there were 7, and then when you 7 went off, 7 more would come on?
Yes.
Different crew? Was there more than 2 crews?
Oh, no, just
Yes,
one.
but one crew wasn't on, the other one was.
There's 4 crews, there's 2 on and 2 off. Because I said 2, 4, 6.
I don't follow you.
In other words, there's 2 men in the powerhouse, right?
Yes?
And there's 2 home. So you gotta double them up.
Okay, so everything is doubled. All right,
Right.
yes.
Well, except the cook.
You have to cook, and he
Yeah.
stays there all the time.
No,
Oh.
there's only one at a time.
Oh, okay, all right.
Cook coming or going.
Oh, you're saying there's 2 every time that there's 2, so that when one is sleeping, the other one can be working, because you don't ever stop, right? On a tugboat, you keep going all the time?
Well, except in the canal if it's foggy or something.
Yeah.
If you're running down the Hudson River, up the canal, up the lakes rather, you usually there.
Here's a picture from the booklet that was given out with the urger showing the part of the Champlain Canal. It's a picture of the Champlain Canal. And we'll maybe take another break here, look at some more pictures. Here's another general shot. In the back here it says between lock 4 and 5, Champlain Canal.
That's right.
Pump cargo out of Chapman had accident. Tug crew had barge 32. I don't know what all that means, but that's what they saw. You didn't see much scenery as you went up and down on the canal, did you?
Saw the same one all the time.
Yes, look at
See what
that.
happened to this one? One barge went aground.
Okay.
And in order for the barge to leave, get off the bottom, they had to pump cargo out of that one into the next one, so it can raise the barge up. So they sent another one from New York all the way up, to another one to do the job. So once they got level, then they took off again. They got off the bottom.
Russell, how would you run aground like that? Is that a mistake of the captain, or is that just the wind blowing, or
Well,
what is some?
you generally have troubles when you got a right barge if the wind is blowing. They're like a kite, you know.
Yeah.
There's no cargo, but sometimes you never know. You're daydreaming, you run aground, and you think you're not in the right place, and you
Yeah.
see, then you go the wrong way, and you run aground. It's
Yeah. So you moved as much more oil than anything else, would you say?
in the last 20 years, I'd say, yes,
Yes, yeah.
maybe more than 20 years. Because the canal's been closed quite a while. It's just about dead now.
Yeah. Changing times, and they're going to change the battery or phone here right now, so thanks for tuning in to Hometown Cable. Bob there with Russell LaFountain, Calvin and the camera, and you're watching story of tugboats and barges in the Champlain Canal and throughout New York State. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be right back. You're looking up on the deck, the back part of the barge, an oil barge, being pushed to go through that opening under the bridge. Takes a lot of steering to go through. Remember, that's being steered by the guy behind, right, with the tug.
That's right.
And so your first question should be, do they always make it? They don't always make it?
It all depends on the high water.
All right. Once in a while, you can see here that was not from freezing. That was where somebody didn't quite make it, and they went into this big stone abutment. Cement abutment, right?
That's right.
Used to see those once in a while when you were...
Yes, I've seen a few of them.
All right. And then we had some more. These books over here are full of pictures of tugboats. Russell has a very extensive collection, very, very proud of. He told me this, I could keep this home overnight, but it could not leave the house. And I said, you bring it home, I don't want to take the responsibility. This is full of pictures, mostly postcards, that he's picked up, right?
There's 192 in this book.
192, and it's something that he knows, probably has seen everyone, may have been on nearly everyone over the period, and he probably was never on one of these, at least the third.
No, I never was.
What are these, Russell? Is this for a parade and they're making water? What is this?
No, well, they take them in parades too, but that was taken when they have to show that it's a fire boat. If they have a fire on the piers, then they want to put it out. If they have fires on ships or canal boats at that time or whatever, that's what they use.
They go in from the side, from the water side. You can't always get in from the other side. That's where the fire is. So this they're able to come in from the water, because the water side don't have any fire. They can get pretty close, and put the fires out. And we thought those were good. Go ahead.
They always also have some in the tugboats, one of them, that they use if they need help.
You mean you have hoses, you mean?
Yes, but they have to put the fire out.
It would be very dangerous out there if you did with all that oil, you're towing and things. Now, Russell, this is a real old picture. You can see how the sides all breaking apart. It's so dry. And on the top it says, boat that used to run at Chazy Landing, and that was a tug, January 4th, 75. That doesn't mean 1875. It certainly wasn't running in 1975. What's the 75 for?
That's the year I bought it.
All right. Where'd you buy this, Russ? Do you remember?
Yes.
I mean, I don't have to be location. Was it up in this area?
Yes.
It was?
Yes.
Garage sale?
No.
No? Okay.
I'll tell you what, you want to know?
Yeah, sure.
Well, there's an auction
At an auction?
over in Tetro,
And you knew what it was at the time?
in Albert.
Did you know what the picture was?
When you showed it to me, I knew what it was.
All right. Great picture. Yeah, that was down near the Saks Landing, I guess, right?
Somewhere around there. I don't know where it runs to. According to what it was on there, it's still on there. Chazy Landing, I don't know if it went to Burlington or Fort Henry or Plattsburgh or what. I have no idea.
The Levy. Initials Levy, L-E-V-Y. A nice old picture. Part of his collection. Tugboats. If you got something on tugboats, I guess, at home, you don't know what to do with it. I guess you wouldn't be adverse if having someone give you something with a tugboat?
I'd be willing to buy them.
All right. I'm going to look myself, because I'm going to watch from now on. If they do tugboats, even if it's a second, I'm sure Russell would love to have it. And people like their collections. Now, as far as money-wise, who cares what this is worth? To you, it means everything, right? It's your life.
That's right.
40 years of work.
Yep.
And let's see when all this started. Here is I guess I may have these upside down here. Nope. There's a barge being towed. You can see by a tug. The tug is where you are. If you look at this picture, and there's the lines that are pulling it. And here's another one with the long line. You can see they're back 300-400 feet. And just to your right, you see a tugboat. And why is that a tugboat there, Russell?
Well, he's got some barges behind him, and he's passing the one that I'm on. Usually they only got 2-3 boats, so the tug's got more power.
Yeah, even racing on the canal.
It's on the canal.
They got to get their work done, all right? Now, this picture here is a very, very important picture in not only Champlain, but in the life of Russell, right here. And who is this, Russell?
That's my father,
And his name again was?
Emmett LaFountain.
Emmett LaFountain. And he's on his boat. He had, how many?
He had 3 of them of his own.
I say boats, I say these are the barges. These were the things that used to pick up and bring the merchandise up and down the river, towed by tugboat.
That's right.
So did you have to... How did that work, Russell?
Yeah, you have to hire them. You have to pay them so much.
So he would contract with someone to bring their merchandise to someplace else,
That's right.
and then he'd pay his expenses, one of which was the tugboat,
That's it.
the landing at a dock, and everything else,
And
right?
I went with it.
Now, if he was gone for several weeks, did the family go with it?
Oh, yes.
So your mom and you and Floyd went on the... Now, you see where it says Floyd right there? Well, this man's name doesn't Floyd. I'm going to tell you right now. I'm going to tell you that. We're going to get back to that. Here's his dad. And what's he doing here, Russell?
Well, he's watching how they're loading the cargo on. You have to put it at a certain place, which sometimes if you don't have it level, your boat is sideways and...
Here you can see all the hatches have been opened at the top. And where you put this is called the hatch, and all the tops are open. You can see it about maybe 18, 20 feet wide. And they've loaded all this merchandise. They put the hatch back on top, and they get pulled down the river.
That's right. There we go. That's it.
Now, we told you I'm going to keep you in suspense a little longer. What about Floyd? See the name of that boat right there? This barge? What's it called? This is the Floyd?
That's the Floyd and Russell.
Floyd and Russell. Because he had 2 sons named Floyd and Russell. This is Russell. Floyd you see around the community very much. Dedicates his time to the firemen very much. He's been fixed with our community. And it was called the Floyd and Russell, one of the 3 boats. And here it is tied up. I say boats, I mean barge, or canal boat. It's called the canal boat. And here is either Floyd or Russell. We don't know which, right, at this point?
I'm not sure.
Not sure which one this is, but here we are on the back end of the canal boat. And this portion you can see, I'm looking at here just a moment, this portion here, Russell. Tell us what that is, that white with the windows. That's the living quarter?
That's the cabin.
Okay, tell us about the cabin. What is it? Part is above the deck and part is below.
Part is on below, and there's some on the top. And the one I was on when I was captain there, the one that you showed, I think you showed it.
No, we're coming to that,
But
yeah.
anyway, that one, we'll wait for that one there.
Okay.
We'll wait for that one.
So you lived in there. Your mother and you and Floyd would live in there while your dad was working. And you slept in there and so forth, right?
That's right. We used to go there, we went to St. Mary's here, we used to get off, and the school was over, and we'd go up and down the canal. And when it was time to go to school, we'd leave.
You see this, the Fountains, the Allards, other names in this town. I think the Angels, are they named all?
Canals and Hunts and all kinds of Pussons. They're all canals.
Okay, now, the Pusar on this is Coash. From the 276, her brother, his name is, he goes under the English translation of Fish, and he worked on the tugs and the barges for a long, long time. I talked with him. He didn't have a great number of pictures. Now this is an unusual thing, and this you see the cabin, and you see a superstructure over it. What's that for, Russell?
That's the winter thing. That's what you put over your cabin, so you won't get the main cabin full of soap, water if you're washing clothes. If the snow is coming down, that way there, because when you in order to get down to that one, there's a little hatchway there, and you got to pull it. And if you didn't have that on there, you'd have just part of the cabin all full of snow. That would be raining and everything, and full of ice. This way here, you don't have it. It's only on the top of that one and on the sides.
That's the way they made their living. And of course, when you work with your dad for a while, and you sometimes take over a boat. This is the guy that we've already seen. He smokes the pipe, so it's this guy there on my left, you're Russell, sitting, and you were the captain of this boat.
Yes, I was.
What's the name of it?
Martha O'Neill.
They don't even give you the Floyd Russell, they give you the Martha O'Neill.
I was working for somebody.
Oh, this was somebody else?
Already on there.
Oh, this was somebody else that you were working for.
Yeah.
How long were you on a barge?
Oh, about 6 years.
And then you went out to tug.
I went on to tug.
Would you say that's a promotion, or would you say that it's the same, or more enjoyable, what?
I thought I liked it better.
Okay.
He wasn't all by himself. I'm gonna tell you, always got a crew.
So you were traveling all your life, like a bus,
Just
bus
about.
driver, huh?
Just about.
When you leave home and come back, you had to get home. You have a son, right?
Yes.
And where is he living?
He was up in Herkimer County.
Yeah. Bright red hair. And guess who? We used to all guess what? Who was the menace? Remember the papers? Dennis the Menace. We used to call his son Dennis the Menace, right? But a lot of people did.
Right.
Red hair and a great smile. And we seen a couple of years ago here, a few years ago.
He lives about 5 miles from Little Falls.
So what's he doing?
He's in the insurance business.
Okay. Well, Russell, thank you very much for getting all this together for us and talking to us about the romance of on the lake and on the water, right?
It's a pleasure.
Well, thank
I had a
you.
chance to look at my book again.
All right. You know, you see Russell on the once in a while. Just ask him some questions that I didn't think to ask him, and he'd be glad to tell you about what he did. I asked him the other day, I said, what's a typical day? He said there was no typical day. So what, for instance, you took off and you went to Buffalo, and your time is up, so you have to get a ride from Buffalo back home, right?
That's right.
And then you'd stay here your week or 6 days or 12 days, and then wherever the tugboat was at that time, you went to that location.
That's it.
Did they pay your transportation from Buffalo here, or was that out of your salary?
They did. They didn't do it years ago. But years ago, when we first started in 1939, we was on a boat steady from spring of the year to winter time.
You stayed there?
Stayed on a boat all the time. Back in 1939, 38.
That's what I would have quit right there, and I think that seems like of course there weren't a lot of jobs in 39, I guess, huh?
No. Well, if you like it,
well, you like it because it's in your blood and your family.
It's in the family, so that's how come I stayed.
I mean, you had to go because there was nothing like that around here. And I think I asked you off camera, there's nobody else in Champlain and or Plattsburgh that you knew that worked this kind of a job while you were working, that you know of? They're not bad, but you don't know who they are. So you had a very different kind of job. You should have been on What's My Line on television to find out what you did. Anyway, anything else you want to tell me, Russell, before we close out?
I don't believe so.
And we hope you enjoyed this whole thing. I'm sorry I didn't make that first part of this showing, but I'm certainly glad that Marty was there. And thanks again, Marty, for a great job. And by golly, this when I retire here, we'll get you on full time. Marty takes a lot of pictures for Hometown Cable, and Calvin is smiling as I say this because Marty's a great help with Hometown Cable. Well, I just want to show you a couple of pictures of some that you served on these.
Yes.
A couple of the large tugs that he served on. These are framed, so they must have a special place in his heart. The others are in books. And you can see that all takes place here. They slept here, they ate here, they worked here, and they look forward to getting home from here.
That's true.
Okay. We don't know what's going to be on next Sunday, but we hope you'll tune in next Sunday, as well as every Sunday at Hometown Cable at 1:15, 4:30, 8 p.m., midnight, and 8 the following morning. And don't have to be on a Sunday. That's when you will see me and Calvin doing this. But any night of the week, same thing. You get to watch all our board meetings. I noticed the other night he had the vote for the Shazy. Was on the screen by the 11 o'clock news at night. I saw him going across the screen, and I knew about the elections for the budget in Shazy and the election. And thanks for tuning in. If you're not already a member of the patrons of Hometown Cable, don't you consider it? And he's always looking forward to a check. He checks his mailbox every day.